Fellas, welcome back to Today in Combat. I'm Bradley Gleason, back in the home base, Austin, Texas. The sun is shining. It feels good to be home. I mean, I spent the last month in the Northeast, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and it just doesn't hit the same. I'm talking 74 degrees and sunny, beautiful outside. I'm running the trails. I mean, shirts off. I got a sunburn. The freckles are popping. Life is good, and it's only getting better because this weekend, UFC 314 is going down. Alexander Volkanovski, Diego Lopes, Paddy Pimblett, Michael Chandler, a fucking banger. Jean Silvia, Bryce Mitchell, Yair Rodriguez taking on the debuting Patricio Pitbull. Stacked fucking card. Let's be honest about it. Stacked fucking card. One fight that I was excited about that we lost. The other fighting nerd on the card, Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal, fell out. But it doesn't matter because, no, I'm not breaking news here. I hope. If you haven't seen this yet, I don't know where you've been. But Carlos Prates, April 26th, just 2 weeks from now, is taking on Ian Garry, the Irishman with big fucking balls to take this fight. The freaking nutsack on Ian Garry is insane to take this fight. But I love it. I love it. We're going to talk about that later. We're also going to talk about the other fight news that we got on that same exact live from Dana White, and that's Suga Sean Omalley versus Merab Dvalishvili 2. That's going down in Newark, New Jersey, and I believe early June, as well as Kayla Harrison and Juliana Pena. We're going to get to it all. We're going to get to it all, but we got to start with UFC 314 because this card is fantastic, and it starts with the main event. Let's take you back a little bit. Let's take it back a little bit before we really dive into this to just kind of understand how this title picture came about. Because we remember Ilia Topuria vacates his featherweight belt after knocking out Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. Vacates, goes up to 155, supposedly. Because we still haven't got a fight announced for him. Hopefully that's coming soon. But Alexander Volkanovski was supposed to, I mean, this was always the spot that we expected him to be in. We always expected Alexander Volkanovski to get the rematch with Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria leaves, and we now get Diego Lopes. Now, the question is it less dangerous of a fight? And the answer is, I don't know. I mean, presumably, just because how good we know Ilia to be, and, you know, Ilia already knocked him out. But Diego Lopes cracks, my friend. He certifiably cracks. And Ilia gets a lot of praise for his ground game, although we don't see it a ton. Diego Lopes, we've seen it. We know it. It's there. He's nasty. Second-degree black belt. UFC debut. Came in on 5 days' notice against Movsar Evloev and put on a fucking show. Did not win, but Movsar, we know, if you follow the sport, a tough fucking out. A tough out. Especially when it comes to the grappling. That's why he is kind of the boogeyman of this division right now, not because he's this hardcore finisher, but because he's such a fucking problem. And really, two people have pushed him to the limit. One was Diego Lopes, the other was Aljamain Sterling. Both those guys, super high-level grapplers. So Diego Lopes, as far as I'm concerned, is a full package. The doubts that we've seen on him this far, I feel like the narrative in this fight, from what I've seen, is the gas tank. That's what people are worried about. They're not worried about the technical ability of Diego Lopes. They're worried about the gas tank, which, you know, he hasn't had any 5-round fights. And we know Alexander Volkanovski can go 5. He's done 5. He's got, what, 5 title defenses, went on like a 12-fight win streak. He can go 5. We know that. The question is the chin still there at 35 years old? And it sucks because we're just going to have to find out. We're not going to know. But the one thing you got to know about Alexander Volkanovski is he is as good as anybody's ever been at the featherweight division. I mean, skilled. Of course he got knocked out by Ilia Topuria. Of course he got knocked out by Islam. But let's not forget about the first Islam fight. Let's not forget about the fact that he was having success in that Ilia Topuria fight. It's not like he got rolled over. He just got caught. He was pumping the jab. Ilia's nose was bleeding in the second round. I mean, he was winning that second round until he wasn't. So I don't think that the skills, at least from what we've seen, have deteriorated. I just don't know if he can take the same punishment that he maybe once could. You know, when he was going to war with Max Holloway, when he was fighting guys like Yair Rodriguez, although he didn't take a ton of damage in that fight. But Volk, the things that he does really well, he's got long arms. Short guy, but he's got long arms. He's got a rangy little jab. like I said, he was popping against Ilya. He's also got, we don't see it a ton, but in that Yair Rodriguez fight, he's got good wrestling, and I'm sure he's got good wrestling defense. I mean, he is the complete package. So if he can stay out of the way of those big shots of Diego Lopes, we might just see Volk dominate like he does. We might see him dominate like he did against Yair Rodriguez, like he did against Max Holloway all those years. I mean, outside of the times that he's got flatlined, he is dominated as of recent. So don't count the old man out. Don't count the great one out. But if there's a guy that can do it, Diego Lopes has all the skills. And I think a couple things that are underrated about his game, he's got a nasty calf kick. A nasty calf kick. Tore up Brian Ortega. Tore up Dan Ige with that calf kick. I mean, he really beat these guys' legs up. Brian Ortega fell down from it. Dan Ige's leg was blown up by the time they got into those third rounds. You know, we don't see Diego Lopes in that position a lot where he's going into these long fights. You know, he got into the UFC, rolled 3 rounds with Mozart, and then he went first round Gavin Tucker, first round Pat Sabatini, who just had a fantastic bout against Brito this past weekend, knocked out Sadiq Youssef. Like, it was so quick, where I think that's where a lot of those doubts are coming from. We just haven't seen him go long, and we have seen him go long. I think a lot of this thought about him being gassy is that in the Dan Ige fight, it did look like he kind of gassed out. He definitely lost that third round against Dan Ige. But you also have to remember the scenario of that fight. You know, he had weighed in 3 times. He was supposed to fight Brian Ortega, weighed in at 145. Brian Ortega said he couldn't make it, re-weighed in at 155. Brian Ortega falls out. Then he gets Dan Ige at a catch weight at 165 on 3 hours notice. So the circumstances going into that fight were kind of, not ideal for having a full gas tank. And then in the Brian Ortega fight, he went 3, and I thought he looked good all the way through. I mean, maybe slowed down a touch in the second round, but he also tried to finish in the first. He nearly knocked out Brian Ortega in the first round and really put a lot of effort into finishing, but once he realized he didn't, he composed himself. He still won the second round, and then in the third round, he was right back to action, putting the pressure on Brian Ortega and landed some really good shots, almost finished him there at the end as well. So I'm not saying the gas tank is not something to worry about for Diego Lopes, but I don't think you can bank that. I don't think you can bank that he's going to gas out. I mean, the last time he fought was at 306, which was last August. He's had plenty of time to work on that gas tank. And speaking of working on things, he put out some, in the countdown video, he put out some training shots of him hitting pads. It looked fantastic, my friend. He looked really fucking sharp on the feet. So I think that element of his game, as he's kind of working up the ranks, is just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. We've seen it since the beginning, where he was a little bit more wild, a little less defensively sound in some of his early fights. I think slowly but surely he's starting to tighten up that defense on the feet, and his hands looked, if he hits you, you go down. I mean, if you can put Brian Ortega on his ass, you can put anybody in the world on their ass, and it's going to be an interesting fight. It really is a put up or shut up type of fight for these guys. Volkanovski loses this fight, especially if it happens in devastating fashion. I don't know what he does. He's in a real bad spot where he's lost 3 straight, and they've all been bad. Even if it's by decision, it's still, he's a champion. He is a champion, and he can fight for however long he wants, but I think the decision making might, the timetable might go up a little bit if he gets stopped in this fight. And Diego Lopes, I don't think he has as much to lose. You lose to Alexander Volkanovski, you just lost to one of the greatest featherweights of all time. Whatever. This is one of those fights I just don't know, because I don't know how Volkanovski's going to look. After getting knocked out twice, taking a little layoff, I just don't know how he's going to look. I know his skills are still sharp. I know he can still bang. I know he's still got great cardio. But I just don't know if that chin is still there, which makes this fight really, really interesting. Following that, speaking of chins, you gotta watch your chin in this next one. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett, a certified fucking banger. This is one of those fights where you just go, who fucking knows? Who fucking knows? And that's to be fair, that's every Michael Chandler fight that's ever been put on. I mean, he really is a fighter's favorite fighter because, not true. Justin Gaethje hates him. Dustin Poirier hates him. The true fighter's favorite fighters, you know. Everybody hates Michael Chandler except for the fans because he's so goddamn fun to watch. He is fun to watch, and we're getting him against Paddy Pimblett, by far his toughest challenge to date. But I'll be honest, I think he's got the skill set to get it done. I think, of course, Michael Chandler could always land that big one. That big punch that just puts your fucking lights out. And Paddy in the past has left that chin up to be hit. But he's looked good as of late. Like, how many times can we say this is too big of a step up for Paddy Pimblett? How many times can we say that? We said it against Bobby Green. I mean, we're saying it against Michael Chandler. We said it against Bobby Green. Fuck, we said it against Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson was on like a 6-fight skid, and we're like, okay, stops here. He's not going to lose to Paddy Pimblett. He lost to Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. Not Dustin Poirier. He lost to Charles Oliveira. He lost to Justin Gaethje. He lost to Michael Chandler. He lost to Bobby Green. He lost to Nate Diaz. He lost to Beneil Dariush. But Paddy's where it stops. This is where the buck stops. Tony's going to get back on the right track. Paddy's not good. We said that. And then he got rolled by Mr. Paddy Pimblett. Going into that Bobby Green fight, he was going to get pieced up on the feet. He was going to get worked by Bobby Green. He's too sharp. He's too fast. There's no chance. Fucked him up. I mean, truthfully, outworked for the little time that fight lasted. Outworked him on the feet. Bobby took a panic shot and then got subbed quick. When you go to the ground with Paddy Pimblett, make no mistake, this motherfucker is a savage. His technique is incredible. He rolls through submissions. He's, in that Bobby Green fight, he slid through like 3 submissions in the course of like 30 seconds and put him to sleep. Triangle, armbar, sleep. And if you look back at some of his other submissions, even when he was getting like rear naked chokes and things like that, he's really good at pinning arms into that triangle. You know what I'm talking about? I think it was against Jordan Levitt. He trapped his arm into his triangle when he was in the backpack and then supped him. I mean, he's fucking nasty. And people are saying, Paddy can't submit Michael Chandler. Charles Oliveira couldn't. Dustin Poirier could. Did we forget that? Did we forget Dustin Poirier sub Michael Chandler? And Charles can submit Dustin Poirier, can he? I mean, we're playing MMA math a little bit here, but it's not like Chandler's unsubmittable. We've seen him get submitted, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 2 fucking fights ago, So I think it actually, of course, the wild style of Michael Chandler, there's always a chance where he lays one out. But something I'll say about Paddy Pimblett, it feels like every time we've seen him, he's got a little bit better. A little bit better. He's progressing a little bit better. He looked really good against Tony Ferguson. Banged with him for 3 rounds. Really wasn't competitive. And then goes out, stops Bobby Green. Like, as the challenges have got tougher, he's looked better. Some of his early fights, he was getting caught here and there. Obviously, he had the weird one with Jared Gordon. But since he's kind of really gotten to this rise, to this higher level competition, he's just looked better and better. I can't say the same thing about Michael Chandler. He just is who he is. Like, if anything, his last fight was probably his worst performance he's ever had. I know Michael Chandler stole the 5th round of that Charles Oliveira fight, but let's not forget, he got dominated for 4 rounds in a way that I think Paddy Pimblett has a very good chance of taking the fight, which is getting him in the clinch, throwing him to the ground, riding him out, working on submissions. I think that is a beautiful path to victory for Paddy Pimblett. And Charles Oliveira basically gave him the blueprint. He got dominated in that fight. Since entering the UFC, Dan Hooker, nasty knockout, gets to Charles Oliveira. Title fight off of that, gets knocked out, goes to war with Justin Gaethje, knocks out Tony Ferguson, goes to war with, and then eventually gets submitted by Dustin Poirier. I mean, this is the top echelon of the division. You got to give Michael Chandler credit there. He's not losing to bumps. I mean, he's losing to the best of this division. But you got to ask yourself, is Paddy one of the best in this division? We're going to find out. We're going to find out come Saturday night. it's a fucking interesting fight. It is a really, really fun fight. Whatever happens, it's going to be fireworks. We know that. That's just the way that both of these guys fight. They turn up the crowd. They're both showmen. It's going to be fantastic. But I don't know if we can keep... If Paddy Pimblett gets over Michael Chandler, we got to stop with this. This is too big of a step up. We just got to stop. We're not going to, because this next fight is going to be against Justin Gaethje or, Charles Oliveira. We're going to say it again. We're going to say it again. I know we are. But fuck, he's looked good, brother. You got to start giving the guy a little bit of credit because he's looked fucking good. Past that, we're just going to kind of bang through some of these other ones quick because those are the two that I really wanted to talk about. Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull. I'll be honest, I didn't watch a ton of Patricio Pitbull. I don't have this real affinity for Patricio Pitbull. I didn't watch a ton of Bellator. I did watch his last fight. I felt okay about him, to be honest. He didn't throw a lot of action through the first 2 rounds. There was a couple times he really pissed me off because it seemed like he was kind of calling his own fouls when Kennedy got into some clinch work that separated the two. But to his credit, when the finishing sequence did happen, he's a shark. When he's got you hurt, he's a fucking shark. 37 years old. He's been kind of up and down in his last handful. Let me find him real quick. I think he's he's won 2 out of his last 5, or maybe 2 out of his last 4. But happy to have him in the UFC. And let's not pretend like Yair Rodriguez has, been streaking as of late. He's 0-2 in his last 2 fights. He lost to Brian Ortega. He lost to Alexander Volkanovski. His last big win was against Josh Emmett, who he beat for the interim belt, which is it's a great win. Josh Emmett's a staple in this division. But if Patricio is who he says he is, and he's a real... if he thinks he can compete with these top dogs, we're going to find out right here because Yair Rodriguez is a wild boy. And I think it's a great matchup. I think it's a really good matchup. I just found Patricio's fight log. He's won 3 of his last 5. So he has 2 losses, 1 in Ryzen and 1 in Bellator, and then got the win that I watched against Jeremy Kennedy. How many fights does he have? 36-7. He's got 12 KOs, 12 subs, 12 decisions. We're going to find out. This is the fun thing about getting one of these guys from Bellator is you get to see how they stack up. And we've had some really fun entrances from the Bellator world, like Michael Chandler, for example. Michael Chandler is probably one of the most well-known UFC fighters in the world right now. He really made a splash. He didn't even have to win, but he's just so fucking fun, so electric. I don't know if I see the same thing out of Patricio. It seemed like from the fight I watched, he really was a counter striker. He didn't, he just kind of waited and watched. And when you're against Yair Rodriguez, he's a wild boy, but he's going to use his long strikes. He throws weird kicks, He's not going to cross that void and just get into he's not going to sit in the pocket and just start banging. He is a warrior. He went to war with the Korean Zombie. He went to war with Max Holloway. But a lot of his strikes are just kind of long and weird. I think I favor Yair Rodriguez in this fight, but I've also seen Yair, when the going gets tough, he can be stopped. Again, we saw it with Brian Ortega. We saw it with Alexander Volkanovski. So, going to be a fun one. We'll find out. Bryce Mitchell, Jean Silvia. Who doesn't like this fight? Obviously, Bryce Mitchell, a controversial character. Jean Silvia rising out of the fighting nerds, as lovable as they come right now. But a harder fight than I think people are giving Bryce credit for. Bryce is a bad motherfucker. He is. This is a guy that his last time out was faced against Kron Gracie, who it's not like I rate Kron real high. But Kron's only skill is jiu-jitsu, and he's world-class at it. Bryce took him right to the ground, didn't give a fuck. Pretty much grappled with him the entire time, and then ended up knocking him out with elbows. He is fearless, and he really is world-class on the ground. He's got a twister on his record. He's fucking nasty. So if he gets Jean to the ground, we really haven't seen what his ground game looks like. It's just been big knockouts. Charles Jourdain did take him down. He got back up. He didn't look, I don't think he's uncomfortable there. But just because you're not uncomfortable doesn't mean you're better than Bryce Mitchell. That being said, Bryce Mitchell, when he's faced big punchers, has not fared very well. I mean, he got knocked out, obviously, by Josh Emmett. He also got dropped and then submitted by Ilia Topuria. So when he has faced big punchers like Jean Silvia is, it has not gone his way. But there's always a chance he gets a sub. And boy, would that be a story. Boy, would that be a story. Nikita Krylov, Dominic Reyes. Nikita Krylov, if we talk about Michael Chandler being a wild boy, Nikita Krylov is definition fucking berserker. An insane man. The second the bell rings, he is all gas, no brakes. He's so fucking fun. I'll give you 39 fights. He's only been to 4 decisions. He's a fucking psycho. He's a literal psycho and relatively well-rounded. I think he's got like 16 subs, maybe 12 knockouts, something like that. I'd have to look at the stat again. But Dominic Reyes has been surging a little bit. He had a big win. He's, fell after that John Jones loss. He fell into kind of a world of knockouts where he went up against guys like Jan Blachowicz, guys like Yuri Prohaska and Ryan Spann, and just got flatlined. But since then, he's kind of brought himself back around. Back-to-back knockouts against Anthony Smith and Dustin Jacoby. I mean, it's looked really good as of late. I think somebody's getting finished in this fight, and I think it's going to happen quick. So I think, truthfully, I know Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler has got fight of the night written all over it, but this could definitely be fight of the night or knockout of the night, because I'm telling you, Nikita Krylov is a fucking psycho. And then we got some other fun fights on the back end. Danny Ige, Sean Woodson, that's a fun one. I think probably an early finish there. Sean Woodson's got one of my favorite body types I've ever seen. Just long, skinny, weird. But out of St. Louis, he had a big knockout in his last fight. A really good women's fight. Yan Xiaonan, Virna Jandiroba. We're going to see how Yan, how much she's improved her ground game, because that's where Virna's going to want to be. But Yan always live. I mean, this is the same lady that just absolutely cold-cocked Jessica Andrade, and then went 5 rounds with Zhang Weili, who, we've seen what she can do. She's one of the best in the world, if not the best. Also put the beating on Tabitha Ritchie and was able to fend her off from getting takedowns. So interesting fight there. That's got big implications in the women's strawweight division, where I feel like Virna is just right on the cusp of the title shot. Maybe not Yan because she already had it, but when we're looking for contenders for Zhang Weili, Virna is one of the names that's in that world. Jim Miller, Chase Hooper, another fun one. Chase Hooper going back-to-back old guys. I think his last fight was against Clay Guida, if I'm not mistaken. But he's looked really, really good as of recent. I mean, first-round sub against Clay Guida. I always forget this guy's first name. Vasychislav Borkachev, fun fighter, but he got subbed in the second round, and then also subbed out Jordan Levitt. So Chase Hooper is really kind of putting it together at 155. Of course, Jim Miller on the back end of his career, but always live. He also got a sub in his last fight, if I'm not mistaken. That was against Damon Jackson. That's right, first round sub. But before that, got pieced up by Bobby Green. You don't really assume Chase Hooper's going to piece him up like Bobby Green did, but his hands have looked better as of recent. Those are kind of the big ones on this card that I'm really excited about, but there's another one coming up, April 26th, Kansas City, main event, Ian Garry versus Carlos Prates. Can we just talk about the fucking nutsack on this guy, Ian Garry? You got to give him some respect. You don't have to like him. You can think he's too brash. You can think he's cocky. You can say whatever the fuck you want, but you can't say he's not fucking game. His last fight, short notice against Shavkat Rakhmonov. This one, short notice against Carlos Prates, who, let's be honest, is probably the scariest prospect walking up that welterweight division. I mean, he's been putting people's lights out and done it quick. The dude's got insane power. Insane power. And for Ian Garry to take it coming off a loss to Shavkat, a fight that doesn't even necessarily progress him in this division. It gives him street cred, but his ranking probably doesn't go up with this win. For him to take that short notice, You got to respect him. You got to fucking respect him. I mean, he did knock, although he lost, he did knock a little bit of the shine off of Shavkat, went 5 rounds and looked good in the later rounds, actually put him in submissions. And you know, you can make a case if he throws 1 or 2 more punches in those first couple of rounds, he wins that fight and is now fighting for the belt against Belal Muhammad. You could definitely make that case. That being said, because of the danger of Carlos Prates, I think Ian Garry is going to adapt a more grappling heavy style in this fight, which, you know, is not the, you know, I'd love to just see the guys bang, but you got to know what's coming back at you. And Ian Garry, as of recent, it seems like that shoot the box has really helped him out when it comes to the grappling. The fact that he did what he did to Shavkat in those later rounds and really kind of took over that fight and stole that shine says a lot. And it seems like the last couple fights, that's kind of what he's done. I mean, he did the same thing with MVP. He did it to Shavkat. There's no reason he shouldn't do it to Carlos Prates. And I actually think that's a really good test for Carlos Prates. Although I would love to just see him bang. When you look up this division, if Carlos Prates really is going to be a top dog here, he's going to have to show off some of that grappling prowess. Because you're looking at guys like Sean Brady ahead of you. You're looking at guys like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Belal Muhammad. You're looking at some hardcore, high-skilled wrestlers and jiu-jitsu practitioners. So a fantastic fight. I'm ultra excited about this. I don't have a pick yet. I don't know who I'm picking, but I think I just really wanted to highlight Ian Garry because I know he's gotten a lot of shit. You know, he went through a whole Sean Strickland, Colby Covington drag. And if you're still riding that wave, go get some pussy, dog. Go out and get some pussy because you haven't been. There's 2 things you should never do to a man. That's pocket watch and pussy watch, dog. Again, you don't have to like him, but you got to respect him. This motherfucker is game. That brings us to the other set of fights that was announced on this live, and that's Suga Sean Omalley versus Merab Dvalishvili. And I've heard the backlash of this, talking about Sean didn't really deserve an immediate title rematch, and, you know, it should have gone to Petr Yan, or it should, you know, no, it shouldn't. Let's be honest about it. First of all, Sean has a win over Petr Yan. Merab absolutely wiped the floor with him. And if we're just talking about competitive fights for Merab, this is probably Sean, love him or hate him, it's probably Merab's toughest test. Outside of maybe Umar Nurmagomedov, which he just, you know, did what he did to. Merab's a bad motherfucker. You got to be able to either out-wrestle him or knock him out. And if you're looking at guys that can knock him out, Sean is that guy. He's the hardest hitting 135er that they got in the top of this division. And truth be told, in the later rounds of that fight, when Merab Dvalishvili usually takes over, Sean won the 3rd and the 5th. I'm not saying he won the fight. I'm just saying, if you look at the judges' scorecards, he took the 3rd and the 5th round. Who hits harder than Sean O'Malley? Who consistently has put people's lights out more than Sean O'Malley? The answer is nobody. I mean, we're looking at it. Umar was probably the toughest test when it comes to the wrestling. But like Petr Yan hasn't knocked anybody out since Jose Aldo back in 2020. Corey Sandhagen, I love Corey Sandhagen. I'm very excited for his fight, but he hasn't knocked anybody out since Frankie Edgar back in 2021. Song Yadong, maybe. Hard hitter, but he just came off of an eye poke to Henry Cejudo. He's not really in that position. Sean O'Malley is that guy. Does it go any different? I don't know. It could end up being just a massive setback for Sean O'Malley. But you got to think it's the best chance. Of course, I love Sean O'Malley. Don't get me wrong. I'm biased. But I think the statement's true. Merab's a bad motherfucker. If you want to get him out of there, you probably got to sleeve him because it's incredibly hard to outwork him. You think about some of the best stories in the UFC over the last 5 years. It was Leon Edwards knocking out Kamaru Usman, who was on top of the world, pound for pound. What? There is no pound for pound. The belt belongs to no one. You remember that? How fantastic that was? How about Israel Adesanya knocking out Alex Pereira after taking that loss? Those are the best stories in the UFC. I think that story is available again. And if Sean wins this one, you thought he was a star before, just fucking wait. He is going to be a superstar. Taking out Merab Dvalishvili. He looks almost unbeatable right now. We also get Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena. I think probably one of the best women's fights you can make. Truth be told. The trash talk's going to be great. They both have been going back and forth. There's actually a press conference Friday between these guys. So we'll see how all of that plays out. But a really fantastic fight. Juliana Pena, you know, heart of a champion. Really all heart, this lady. She's a fucking monster.
Kayla Harrison has looked really, really good since joining the UFC. Another one that came over from that PFL, like Patricio Pitbull, that's had a lot of success. Took out Holly Holm, took out Ketlin Vieira, has looked really good. I think it was just a matter of time before she got to this position to get to the belt. And I'm glad that Juliana's holding it over Raquel Pennington, because it just makes that build up so much more fun. And I think you just can't count out Juliana. She's so fucking tough. She's a tough motherfucker. So I love that fight. Outside of maybe like Zhang Weili, Valentina Shevchenko, I think it's probably the best women's fight you can make. And there's some other good ones coming up. I mean, the Yanchana Verna Janjarova is a good fight. But as far as hype goes, it's probably the best one you get. Another one that's coming is Natalia Silva, Alexa Grasso. I love that fight. I love that fight. So exciting stuff coming this weekend and coming in the coming months. Ian Garry, Carlos Prates, Sean O'Malley, Rob Dvalishvili. Of course, 314 stacked to the gills. That was Today in Combat. Back at home, back at the home base. I'm going back to Providence, Rhode Island this weekend, but we're going to be back next week. Tomorrow, the Bets with Cody comes out. So if you want to get the betting line, stay tuned, because we'll find you some good picks. Hopefully you can make some money this weekend, but that's all I got. Peace, love. That was Today in Combat. I'm out.